Could this actually be the flood tunnel that's causing our problems? I don't know. That's what we're here to find out, because we could be that close to the treasure. We have spent a lot of time trying to follow the gold and the silver. If there's gold in that void, that'd be huge. Buried beneath centuries of mystery, the truth has finally surfaced. Gold has been found in Oak Island's money pit. After years of dead ends, setbacks, and whispers of lost riches, the latest discovery has sent shockwaves through the team. Traces of real gold have been detected in the underground water, proving once and for all that treasure is hidden deep beneath the island. Tune in as the final layers of earth are pulled away, revealing what has been buried for centuries. The hunt for Oak Island's hidden treasure continues. Deep in the North Atlantic, on a little island called Oak Island, people have been searching for treasure for more than 2 centuries. It's a place full of mystery, secrets, and whispers of riches buried deep underground. And now, after all this time, the team digging into the legendary money pit might have just struck gold, literally. But as the drill struck something solid, the crew froze. This was no ordinary treasure. The sun rises over Oak Island, casting golden light over the trees and water. A new day means a new chance to uncover something big. The drilling rig roars to life as the team gets to work. Rick and Marty Lagina, along with their crew, have never been more excited. Today could be the day. They've spent years chasing clues, following old maps, and listening to stories passed down through generations. But this time, the science is backing them up. Not long ago, a team of experts took water samples from the underground shafts. The results? Gold. That's right, traces of real gold floating in the water. And where there's gold in the water, there's gold in the ground. Now, they just have to find out exactly where it's coming from. The plan is simple but intense. Drill, sample, analyze. They're punching holes deep into the ground, pulling up core samples, and checking every inch for signs of something man-made. Wood, metal, anything that doesn't belong. Every clue gets them closer to the prize. Today, the drill has hit something big. The team gathers around as the core sample is pulled up. It's packed with wood, lots of it. But this isn't just any wood. It looks old, really old. Could this be part of the original treasure chamber? The deeper they go, the more they find. Layer after layer, piece after piece, the evidence is stacking up. Then, the metal detector beeps. The energy shifts instantly. Could this be it? Could they finally be touching the very thing so many have died searching for? Meanwhile, in another part of the island, something just as exciting is happening. Near the swamp, a massive stone road has been uncovered. Some think it's a ship's wharf, possibly built by explorers centuries ago. Others believe it could be linked to a secret operation to hide something valuable. The swamp has already given up some amazing finds: wooden barrels, pieces of old ships, even an ancient lead cross that might have connections to the Knights Templar. Every discovery adds a piece to the puzzle, but there are still so many questions left to answer. Back at the money pit, the drilling continues. The rig grinds deeper and deeper into the earth. Then, suddenly, more wood. But this time, it's different. These aren't just scattered planks. This looks like a structure, something built with purpose. The crew leans in. The excitement is electric. They're close, so close. The team knows they can't rush this. Every move has to be calculated. The next step: a full-scale excavation. Huge steel shafts will be driven into the ground, allowing them to dig down safely and see exactly what's buried beneath Oak Island. If the gold is really there, if the treasure that's been whispered about for centuries actually exists, they are on the verge of finding it. For more than 200 years, treasure hunters have tried and failed. They've dug, they've explored, they've risked everything. But this time, it feels different. This time, the evidence is undeniable. Gold in the water, man-made tunnels, ancient artifacts. All signs are pointing to something big hiding beneath the surface. Is this finally the year the mystery of Oak Island is solved? The answer lies just a few feet below. As the day stretches on, the team doesn't let up. They push forward, determined to see this through. More drilling. More analyzing. More evidence stacking up. Every foot they dig brings new questions and new possibilities. If someone really hid something here centuries ago, they went to great lengths to keep it a secret. The swamp, with its murky waters and shifting ground, continues to be a hotspot of activity. The heavy equipment churns up layers of earth, revealing strange structures beneath. Some of the wood beams pulled from the mud seem to be part of a dock or platform, something built with a clear purpose. Could it be tied to those old theories about hidden ships? The deeper they go, the more intriguing it gets. Back in the Money Pit area, historian Charles Barkhouse and geologist Terry Matheson are hard at work. They have been closely monitoring the drilling of the borehole DN 11.5. Now that the drilling has reached the possible treasure zone, between 80 and 120 feet below the Earth's surface, Andy, a geoscientist, walks over to the tent that Charles and Terry are setting up to check on them. Terry lets him know that they are down DN 11.5 and have reached 78 to 88 feet, getting closer to their goal. As he says this, a loud grinding sound can be heard coming from the drilling crew. Everyone looks up as the screeching only gets louder. The drill operator says that they need to pull up the drill because they broke through something. They decide to take a measurement on the pipe to figure out what happened. As the drill operator reads a measuring tape, he announces that they are open 1.5 feet. Terry looks on from the tent, jaw dropped, worried that something has gone terribly wrong for the crew. The drill operator makes his way to Terry and tells him what happened. He claims to have broken through something when he reached 90 feet underground. Terry rephrases what he said, and now the situation can be understood. The drill operator has encountered an open space 90 feet below grade, meaning there is a void down there. The three men in the tent let the operator know that they are going to talk over this development and will let him know what to do once they reach a consensus. For now, they want to pause the drilling. Charles takes out his phone to contact the Lagina brothers, Rick and Marty. Rick is shown in a confessional, saying that whenever he gets a call from the Money Pit drill program, it is an exciting moment for him because DN 11.5 is within the treasure zone they have designated. The importance of the area cannot be stressed enough. They have invested a fortune in time and money to narrow down the area with the highest gold values. Rick drives down to the area right away, in a great mood. The entire team starts to file into the tent near the borehole, everyone gathering around to hear the latest development. Mike, the operator of the drill, tells them that at around 90 feet, he could feel the rods break through something, and it was open about 1.5 feet past his rods. He speculates that whatever he cut through likely fell into this void. This is an exciting and worrying development. Could he have hit buried treasure that has now dropped into a void? Terry takes out a map of the area and determines that the DN 11.5 borehole lines up with DN 12.5 and DN 13.5, all along an east-west alignment. All of it is a structure at 94 feet below grade. He says that Mike hitting it below 90 feet suggests they are at the top of the tunnel. Marty says they need to confirm whether it is a tunnel or not, and the only way to do that is to pull the core. He commands Mike to get them some core and find their treasure. Mike and Colton march back to fulfill his wishes. As the core is pulled up, the team notices solid chunks of it. Later that afternoon, they receive lab results on a wood sample. Emma Culligan, an archaeometallurgist, delivers the most anticipated scientific report in the history of the show. She reveals unexpected quantities of gold. The men's eyes light up. Could they finally be on the verge of uncovering Oak Island's greatest mystery? Truly an outlier when testing things like wood, she confirms that yes, it is unusual, and she laughs and calls it a very big outlier. They all take this for remarkable news. A close-up of the chart shows that gold is present as the 12th element on the chart of 14, all of which are ordered in descending increments, meaning that gold is nearly the smallest amount present. Rick sees these tests as a confirmation of their theories, and with good reason at that. He says that they now have in their grasp proof that they have singularly unique results. The application of that concept in two different mediums, in the wood and in the water, is an extraordinary development for them, as the crumbs of information they come across have led them to the most likely area that contains gold. The treasure has surely been identified. On top of that, Rick realizes that this may connect them to where the treasure may be. This could connect them to a direction they can follow. The results of the wood sample are extremely impactful and influential in keeping up their current narrative of where the treasure is and how it got there. The gold sampling of the water and now the wood is their greatest find of the year. If anyone was waning in hope and enthusiasm, this is surely the thing they need to awaken it inside of them. Their hopes of finding the treasure at the bottom of the garden shaft by drilling is so far paying great dividends, and Rick is thinking that this is the start of an evidence trail. In his eyes, Every bit of evidence that has led them here is as important as the gold traces they have found. He has a piece of wisdom to share when he says that they will never find samples in the lab. In the lab is where they come up with the answers. They leave Emma with the promise of bringing her more samples. The group might solve secrets that make their deepest hopes come true. Find out about the exciting journey of a group of people who think a strange island holds a lot of money. Not only are they digging, but they are also thinking about how to keep their work secret. Hold on, the story is getting better. A gap found under shaft DN 11.5 gives them ideas. The garden shaft turns into a hub of activity and shows interesting signs. Outside, gold sightings and tales about a treasure area have sped up their work. The Lagina brothers believe they are almost there with the answers they've been looking for. What do you think? Are they close to the treasure? This, coming after the revelation of more gold detected in the water and wood of the island, is surely a positive foreshadowing for what is in store for the Oak Island team. We begin the episode with Rick Lagina and his son Alex walking into an outdoor tent set up where they have monitors and equipment near the money pit. Brandon Vanderhoff of Duma Contracting Limited is heading up the probe drill supervising this day, and they are watching through a monitor as a crane lowers a drill into the garden shaft, giving them a view of what is going on inside. Members of Duma Contracting Limited can be seen in the area, preparing machinery and working on getting the probe drilling underway. Today has been highly anticipated as it marks the beginning of this new probe drilling operation that will search for valuable, clear clues and treasure that are just outside the structure of the garden shaft. The garden shaft was an old broken-down building that had been built and then left empty decades ago when another group of explorers and treasure hunters came to the island looking for wealth. However, in the present day, it is being refurbished by Dumas, and it has given the Oak Island team high trace evidence of gold through water testing. If that is not enough incentive to continue the restructuring, they have also found evidence of a possible chamber connected to the original money pit only feet away from their garden shaft. Rick is hoping for something precious and solid in the garden shaft. He has often been the voice of encouragement for the crew, rallying them and lifting their spirits when they begin to doubt they will ever find any treasure or answers. After seasons of scratching away at the mystery of the cursed island, Rick is sure that this is where the treasure hunt is truly beginning. All that came before was merely setting the stage and doing the legwork and research for this moment. Alex is recounting to Brandon in the tent that when they were drilling inside the shaft, they hit a void in the area. This information comes as a surprise to Brandon, making one wonder what information the Oak Island crew is sharing and not sharing with their contractors. After this little exchange, we get a flashback where Marty is asking someone how much they think he is missing out of the last 30 feet, and the drill operator speculates he is missing 10 feet. This response makes Marty snap his head to look over at his brother and feeds into his belief that this void they stumbled across could be the indicator of an offset chamber. Earlier this summer, the team drilled into a 10-foot-high void located several feet southwest of the garden shaft, a void that was speculated about by Marty Lagina that could hold the money pit treasure vault that has long since been rumored. When the flashback ends, the inside of the garden shaft comes into view. It is difficult to tell what is happening inside, but Brandon, who is above ground with Alex and Rick, lets the viewer know that the team is lining up and getting the probe drill squared away inside the shaft before they begin. Since the Duma contractors have reached a depth of 55 feet in the reconstruction of the garden shaft, they are now going to manually probe drill multiple boreholes that will be able to reach several feet outside of the structure in the hopes of reaching the void they know is out there and finally determining what is inside of it. Rick says that if there is some connection there, he believes the Dumas team needs to know it as soon as they do. Alex thinks that if luck is on their side, they will finally know the truth today. In order to probe drill from inside the garden shaft, the team from Dumas Contracting is using a powerful hydraulic earth drill, a fancy way of saying a machine that is equipped for penetrating hard clay, sediment, and rock. They are focused on finding the void that is just outside their perceptions. They will drill a total of 3 holes in each of the shaft's walls, which makes for a total of 12 holes they will be making today. Of course, these holes will be made at different angles to multiply the possibility of success 12 times over. Any evidence they can gather of more man-made works and valuables, the closer the Oak Island team gets to success. The Duma crew is extremely professional, and as they work, they also collect soil samples. Rick, Alex, and Brandon watch on through a screen when Rick is struck with an important question for Brandon. He asks if, when the team cuts through the tight lining along the garden shaft wall, that is, the wooden lining along the walls, if he would be able to keep the wood that is coming from every hole the Duma team makes. What Rick could want with these wooden shavings is easy to guess, but he explains to Brandon in order not to come off sounding like a very demanding and annoying client. Rick explains that he would like to get the wooden leftovers to send to the lab and run through the XRF, X-ray fluorescence spectrometer, because they have detected high gold values in the area. In the next scene, Rick explains his thought process. That wood act like a sponge if they test the outside of the shaft because they know the water samples show traces of gold. So, it stands to reason that the wood inside the shaft should also show traces of gold. This is a rather clever move from Rick because this is another way to verify and confirm their suspicions without needing to wait for all the results from the boreholes. He is determined not to waste any opportunity. Would you like any refinements or adjustments to the formatting? 7 centuries ago, the Knights Templar supposedly buried treasures on Oak Island. This shocking connection adds fuel to the speculation that they roamed the island all those centuries ago. The team returns to Lot 26, where Rick, Peter, and Laird are gathered around a stone wall. They believe the rocks were excavated during the building of a tunnel. Romy thinks the rocks would be an easy way to hide tunneling activity, as the spoils from the tunnel could be moved and scattered across the land. To avoid attracting attention to any specific spot, the theory suggests that the rubble was used to start construction on a wall. When framed this way, the idea is not far-fetched. They all agree the wall was purposefully built. It is simply too well organized and structured to be otherwise. Peter, Rick's nephew, comments that they need to find an artifact to back up their new theory. The next morning, following the revelation that the Knights Templar may have undertaken construction efforts on the island, the team continues their investigation. Oak Island historian Charles visits the money pit, where he speaks with drill operations supervisor Brandon Vayner-Hoff, asking for an update. Brandon informs him that they are about to start the last probe drilling effort before reconstructing the next level of the shaft. As the drill twists into the last wall, Brandon asks a series of questions about any findings. The Dumas team reports that they have found nothing when, suddenly, the drill hits something at 11 feet, causing them to stop. Charles sympathizes with the Dumas team, as they have no idea what they have encountered. It could just be a rock, or it could be something completely different. Both teams find themselves waiting anxiously for answers. As they observe the drill bouncing off the obstruction, tension rises. A sample is collected from the rock they hit, but upon examination, they find no signs of human activity in their exploratory drilling. This is disappointing news after such a promising streak of discoveries in this episode. Charles is convinced that there is a story at the end of this shaft and believes they must drill deeper. The next morning, the entire Oak Island team gathers near the money pit under an open-air tent, examining core samples. Emma Culligan, the team's archaeometallurgist, approaches with the results of the samples that Rick had collected from the initial borehole drillings. She holds up plastic bags containing samples, swinging them through the air to show everyone. Emma explains that because the sample is small, she can conduct a map scan. Rick interrupts to ask about the sample she just placed on the table. Smiling, Emma admits that in her hurry, she forgot to explain what she was holding. She clarifies that the sample comes from the inner lining of the garden shaft, taken from the wooden pieces originally placed along the shaft walls. She then makes a shocking announcement. Her analysis detected traces of gold in the wood. This discovery confirms the team's theory that gold could be present within the structure. The wood sample containing traces of gold was taken from a depth of 55 feet inside the garden shaft. Marty asks Emma how accurate her findings are, and she confidently assures him that the test results are 100% accurate. Marty smugly turns to the team and says, "Well, there you go." Terry then asks Emma if the gold adhered to the organic material, specifically the wood. She confirms that it did, at a percentage of 0.1%. While small, it is still enough to qualify as gold traces. The team recognizes the significance of this finding. Marty asks if this is a substantial amount, and Emma explains that, measured in parts per billion, it is indeed a notable discovery. The experts discuss the next steps, considering cross-checking water samples with other samples to validate their findings. Terry remarks that Emma has an incredible ability to find gold, joking that it's a valuable superpower, which makes everyone laugh. Marty is thrilled with the results, feeling that they are closer than ever to a major discovery. Rick then speaks to the team, emphasizing the importance of science in their treasure hunt. This analysis has reinvigorated the group, and Rick notes that everyone at the meeting is smiling. He reminds them that they have always believed the garden shaft could provide unique opportunities if they remained smart and humble enough to learn from past mistakes. To celebrate Emma's findings, Rick initiates a round of applause, and she bashfully turns away. The team plans to follow the trail of gold deeper into the garden shaft while also investigating the mysteriously connected wells on the island. The episode title hints that they are on the verge of uncovering answers, or perhaps even more questions, related to a hidden well. Marty heads to the outdoor tent near the money pit, preparing to monitor another day of work. The team feels closer than ever to finding answers, or perhaps even the mythical treasure. Paul Troutman, an Oak Island historian, and Rodney McKay, part of the Dumas contracting team, are also present in the tent. The latest update on the garden shaft work indicates that they are installing a new set between 50 and 56 feet below ground. The shaft may be connected to the original money pit, potentially holding the key to solving Oak Island's treasure mystery. Marty has a message for Rodney. He explains that when they drilled boreholes, Rick requested samples from the water, soil, and wood. When tested, all the samples contained trace amounts of gold. A flashback scene shows the team using a probe drill to penetrate the garden shaft's walls and Rick instructing them to bag the samples for lab analysis. In another flashback, Emma announces that she found high trace evidence of gold in the wood. Back in the present, the team continues requesting more samples, hoping that as they go deeper into the garden shaft, the gold traces persist, or better yet, increase. While Dumas Contracting completes the final stages of the shaft work, the Oak Island crew will continue testing original structure samples. One advantage of refurbishing the shaft is that they now have the opportunity to study the original materials and pinpoint the ultimate source of the gold. Marty remarks that no one on the Dumas team could have predicted finding gold in the wood of the garden shaft. He tells Rodney that he is unsure what to make of their findings and that the team is still trying to piece everything together. Just then, Rodney notices a crew member sealing something in a bag and quickly walks over to the shaft entrance to retrieve it. When Rodney returns, he brings 2 large bricks used in the garden shaft's construction. Terry, the historian, notes that since gold traces have been found in the water, there must be a point of contact, possibly a deeper cavern or tunnel extending into the money pit. Everyone agrees with this assessment, so they shift their focus back to analyzing the newly collected samples. Before leaving to get the bricks tested, Marty warns Rodney that his team will likely demand more samples, so he should prepare for that. While refurbishing the garden shaft is crucial to their treasure hunt, the team is also determined to uncover the island's secrets, an even greater treasure for some. Across the island, the team gathers in the war room, where Rick presents an idea inspired by Tom Nolan. Tom Nolan, an Oak Island landowner, is the son of the late Fred Nolan, a well-known researcher of the island. Other team members in the war room include Jack Begley, Charles Barkhouse, and Scott Barlow. The meeting is focused on discussing Fred Nolan's research. Rick hands the meeting over to Tom, who provides insight into his father's decades-long work. In the early 1980s, Fred began compiling a book on his findings, though it was never published. His research, spanning from the early 1960s until his passing in 2016, contributed significantly to the island's history. Fred Nolan, a professional surveyor from Halifax, Nova Scotia, made some of the most notable discoveries in Oak Island's treasure hunt. He focused on the 6 lots he owned, where he found parts of a large sailing vessel in a swamp and a formation of 6 boulders known as Nolan's Cross. From an aerial view, these boulders form a tilted cross. Tom recounts a memory from the 1970s when he and his father were working along the swamp's outer edge and discovered a well. The well had been buried and filled in. Tom recalls it being about 10 feet deep, but what stood out was the massive amount of broken pottery they found at the bottom. It appeared as though someone had smashed all their belongings into the well. At the time, they were unsure what to make of this finding, so they refilled it. Now, Tom believes this discovery aligns with what was found on Lot 26 and suggests taking a closer look. Rick agrees and sees this as a worthwhile avenue for investigation. Tom then shares another discovery from the early 1990s, something they called the quadrilateral, found using an offset sightline from Nolan's Cross. Within a couple hundred feet from the top of the cross on the north side of the swamp, Tom claims that when they got into the site, they cleared it off and brought in a small backhoe and did some light excavating in the area. What they found themselves in was some kind of boulder field, and it definitely did not look natural. Once they started to uncover more, Tom then reaches into a dark spiral notebook that he is sitting on the desk in front of him, and he pulls out what he says is the section in the book that was dedicated to the quadrilateral. Rick is looking over the page, and he asks Tom to explain the diagrams drawn inside. Tom says that they are his father's pictures of how he sketched out the quadrilateral. He showed a picture of the page which shows on its long side it would be a shape of the formation of boulders, all neatly set next to each other, that is about 32 feet long and runs 10 feet deep with 3 layers of large boulders. Rick says that this is quite intriguing, and everyone around the table nods along. Tom chimes in that no farmer working on the island would have done this. He makes a good point, as there would be little reason for a hard-working farmer to create such a feature into the side of the island, so it stands to reason to Tom that it has another purpose they are all unaware of. Jack Begley, who until now remained silent, asks whether the area had been dug out or if their team will be able to do any excavations in the area. Tom says that his dad partially backfilled the area so it could be re-excavated. Rick leans forward and starts to take charge of the meeting again, saying that this information is all very interesting and what they will do is explore it further. However, he is more interested in exploring the well that he was referencing first. Rick's reasoning is that the well is on the northern end of the swamp, and they know the swamp was manipulated. Rick, in a private narration, says that Tom's well is interesting for 2 reasons. 1, it is a hidden well. That is how Fred Nolan described it. Rick says that there are other wells on the island, and they are all open and were not filled in. A very strange departure to have one covered up. The quadrilateral is a unique geometric figure, one with possible historical value, and he does want to look into it. However, the well takes priority in his mind. Eager for answers, Rick dismisses the war room meeting and hastens everyone to their tasks. Later that very afternoon, Rick Lagina and his son Alex are out with Billy Gart excavating Lot 11 near the northern edge of the triangle-shaped swamp. Rick gives Billy some important instructions, saying that he would work from the outside in so as not to tear apart the well. Billy takes these directions and carefully goes behind to dig up the area where Tom Nolan claims there is a hidden well. When the first bit of dirt is scooped out, Rick tells Gary that they have a mini treasure for him. He tells Gary that, as he knows, Fred did not use a metal detector during his research on the island because he was not a proponent of that, so he thinks they may find something here. Gary Drayton, the metal detection expert, is standing by as Rick determines the extent of the well. Gary is scanning all of the dirt that Billy pulls up. Almost immediately, Gary realizes that he has landed on something odd. He says he was about to sweep over it with his metal detector when he spotted it. What he pulls out of the soil is an old spike. However, this moment is more than just finding an old spike. It also gives some insight into why Fred Nolan was not a proponent for metal detection devices. If Gary had just been using his metal detector to see and examine the area, he might have missed some other item that lacked metals sitting under the soil. This is a potentially important clue. Gary identifies it as a rose head spike. As he holds it up proudly, he is taken immediately by the thought of the last person to ever hold that spike. Rick thinks it might have been the person who dug the well in the first place, for clearly, Fred Nolan had missed it in his first search. A rose head spike is special since it was hand-forged sometime prior to the discovery of the money pit in 1795. If this is so, how could the spike be related to the buried well that was only rediscovered 4 decades ago? More questions spill out, and they had just begun the excavation. It is a massive fastener of a spike, and Gary immediately jumps to them being used in tunneling or shafts. Gary bags it immediately and he goes to recheck the dirt he pulled it out of. Rick is unsure of what to make of this discovery and what it could mean. They have found rose head nails in the money pit in Smith's Cove, and he knows that those areas had been highly manipulated by men that came before him. He finds this fascinating, and he wonders if this is a sign that there are more structures hidden out of sight near this buried well. Gary finds another item immediately and pulls out a hook that looks quite old-fashioned and he believes could have been used to bring up water from the well. He notes that it looks hand-forged due to the striation on the tip. Gary then jogs their memories about another hook they found that someone called Carmen then identified as being from the 1600s. In a flashback, we are taken to Lot 8, which is less than a quarter mile to the west. Gary and Marty found another 17th-century bunk hook, a tool specifically designed for lifting heavy cargo. They believe this new hook could be of a similar use and origin. Later on, in their journey of excavating the buried well, they have discovered that the boulders in the well are stacked one on top of the other. Rick, seeing more of the well, is convinced that it is related to the well they found in Lot 26 because they are the 2 on the island that look like that. This is a potentially historic discovery for the team on the island. The stone well was first discovered in the 1970s, and now, as it has been unearthed, they believe it could date as far back as the 11th century. The well has shown it has high trace evidence of silver. Rick says that there are enough remnants remaining to point to the construct being the same as that of the Lot 26 well, that he is tentatively connecting to the Knights Templar. Rick explains that the smaller stones and the lack of large round granite boulders are identical to what they found in the Lot 26 well. Tom Nolan tells Rick that no matter how much Rick excavates the well, he doubts that they will ever find a perfectly round well here. They are all trying to figure out what to do next, and Gary suggests that they lift the top off the well with the excavator to expose more. Tom thinks that could be a good idea. Tom suggests they take out some of the center and look for more evidence. Rick notes that the 8 other wells across the island are completely different. Tom says that the placement of the hidden well is well chosen since the swamp is not far from the area, so making a well here means they will always have access to water. Rick does not believe in coincidence, so to him, the 2 wells must have been made by the same group for a similar purpose. He just does not know why or how it is relevant. To Rick, this discovery is impactful because the wells being on opposite ends of the island, one in the north and the other in the south, point to a body of work of some mysterious person or organization that Rick believes is treasure depositional work. They want to keep excavating, hoping the very end of the well will show them some clue, but they are warned against going deeper, as the team will need to get permits allowing more excavation. The reason for the caution is understandable, as the swamp being so near to the excavation could prove to be an ecological problem for the island. Back at the Oak Island Interpretive Center, Emma Culligan, the archaeometallist, has been able to find some information on the wood they pulled from the garden shaft earlier in the week. The wood comes from 58 feet down on the crane side, which would make it the opposite side of the piece of wood that tested positive for gold. The treasure zone is an area that Rick says is significantly unknown and underinvestigated, meaning they could truly be the first to unearth new clues or find new items that can measure their progress compared to previous attempts at cracking the mystery of Oak Island. For the Oak Island team and the Dumas Company, all the drilling is meant to further their understanding of the relevance of the garden shaft in terms of treasure recovery. Craig notes that the Dumas team is taking samples of clay and wood from the shaft, excited to see whether the wood on the outside or the inside has higher traces of gold. Scott Barlow and Craig say that any new piece of the puzzle will help them tremendously, hoping to inspire more interest in the Dumas team. Across the island, Rick Lagina and his team are still excavating some wells. Tom Nolan, a landowner on the island and the son of Fred Nolan, is also part of this ongoing investigation. They are currently on Lot 13, northeast of the swamp. This is the site where they have decided to search for the quadrilateral. Rick finds it fascinating that Fred Nolan had written about 3 layers of multi-ton stone, all waiting to be analyzed. This unique feature immediately caught the attention of the Oak Island team. Tom hopes they can get some answers. His father knew they had found something special but never had the chance to confirm his suspicions or determine the meaning before his death. In a flashback sequence, Tom is shown in the war room, presenting the crew with a section from his father's book that describes the quadrilateral Fred Nolan had discovered. Fred was an incredible man who spent 6 decades documenting his search of Oak Island. He found a boulder field that appeared man-made, over 30 feet long, and discovered in 1993. It is speculated that constructing the quadrilateral would have taken a great deal of time and energy, highlighting its importance in understanding the activities and motivations of those on the island centuries ago. Although Fred managed to remove a number of boulders and rocks from the quadrilateral feature, he was never able to confirm whether the structure was a marker or if it was hiding something. Rick states that the end of Fred's dig is the beginning of theirs. The team chuckles as they say it's time to get bolder, a play on words as Billy resumes his excavation. He uncovers a pipe sticking out of the area, as well as small sticks scattered on the ground. Gary asks Tom whether his father did any drilling in the quadrilateral area, and Tom confirms that he did, as documented in his book. As the team retrieves one of the sticks, they notice it has been cut and burned. Gary comments that the consistency of the dirt is more akin to what is found at the bottom of a swamp. As they examine the burned wood pieces, Gary recalls similar small pieces they found 2 years ago at the base layer of the stone pathway around the swamp. The thin branches that were cut are particularly reminiscent of that discovery. Next, a flashback sequence takes us to the day they found a 500-year-old stone road in the southeast corner of the swamp. During excavation, the team discovered tightly packed firm dirt. Gary noted that this was evidence of cribbing or support. When tested 2 years ago, the design was determined to be of Portuguese origin. The team had also found coal at the excavation site, which served as the base layer for the road's construction. Now, finding burned wood resembling charcoal in the quadrilateral structure feels like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. A year after discovering the stone road, they visited a site in Almirall, Portugal, a known stronghold of the Knights Templar between the 12th and 16th centuries. Rick and Alex Lagina, along with Doug Crowell, were shown a nearly identical stone road during their trip. Walking along the Portuguese road, they theorized that it served as a blueprint for the one on Oak Island. Rick asks Billy how deep he was digging when he found the charred wood, and Billy replies, 4 feet. This signals to everyone that much more digging remains. This is a monumental moment. Could the team have found evidence suggesting that the quadrilateral feature on Lot 13 and the stone road near the swamp are connected? The search for more connections and answers resumes. To top it off, they also find clay in the quadrilateral feature, clay that should not be there. Previously, the island's clay had been attributed to the money pit. None of them were prepared for yet another link leading to the island's other mysteries. Jumping into the pit, they begin digging at the blue clay located there. Rick explains that this blue clay is similar to what they've seen in the money pit, calling it part of the historical narrative of finding the money pit. He poses a rhetorical question. If they were trying to keep water out of an underground structure they wanted to build, would they use this clay to their advantage? He answers his own question, absolutely. His theory suggests that the blue clay indicates a structure is possibly buried below the quadrilateral. If true, what kind of structure would be buried and secured underground? What could it contain? Excitement mounts as the team returns to Lot 13 with Drive Ian Spooner to analyze the mysterious quadrilateral feature. Rick explains their findings, the clay, the stones, and their theories about what is happening. More importantly, he wants to know if there is evidence of human interference in the area. Dr. Spooner, using a metal stick, probes the ground and finds the soil to be quite clay-rich and thick, which he finds odd. Rick asks if this could be geological or glacially deposited. Dr. Spooner dismisses the idea, stating that the environment, being a hill slope, makes that improbable. Dr. Spooner also notes that the clay is in different colors, indicating exposure to heat or burning. He pulls out burnt wood stuck to clay and states that the two do not naturally occur together. He concludes that the clay is disturbed and out of place, meaning something purposeful happened there. Rick argues that Oak Island's history is too complex not to have purpose. He theorizes that stacking boulders would be difficult to remove later, making the area resemble a safe. The team agrees. This quadrilateral appears to be a human construct, not a random formation. Later, the team gathers in the war room to discuss research from Portuguese researcher Francisco Nogueira, who has been working with them. During a conference call, we learned that Rick commissioned researchers across Europe to investigate potential connections to the Oak Island mystery. With recent discoveries in mind, they are focusing on links to the Portuguese sect of the Knights Templar, known as the Order of Christ. Rick's friend Judy Rudebouche alerted him that Francisco had compelling information, potential evidence that members of the Order of Christ buried treasure on the island. Francisco says that after seeing the team's discoveries, he sought evidence of Portuguese presence in the North Atlantic, specifically Nova Scotia, between the 15th and 16th centuries. His first task was reviewing the history of the Azores, as they were crucial for navigators at the time. He confirmed that the Order of Christ was active there in the 15th and 16th centuries. The belief that the organization moved treasure to the New World remains strong. Additionally, Francisco states that the rock wall on Oak Island appears to be constructed in the Portuguese style, using a method commonly employed in the 15th and 16th centuries. Excitement fills the room as Francisco discusses the missing treasure. He explains that in 1580, Portugal faced a succession crisis. King Enrique died without an heir, triggering a 3-year war for independence. His nephew, Antonio, prior of Crato, a member of the Order of Christ, was considered the rightful heir. However, the King of Spain took control of the throne. Amidst the turmoil, a vast fortune of gold, potentially linked to the Order of Christ, disappeared and was never recovered. Francisco believes this treasure may be hidden on Oak Island. The presence of the stone road, stone wall, quadrilateral feature on Lot 13, and high traces of gold in the money pit all point toward this theory. Rick recalls their visit to Portugal, where they speculated that the Order of Christ anticipated their downfall and devised a plan to seek refuge, possibly bringing valuables with them. The entire team agrees that the possibility of a Portuguese connection is stronger than ever. The next day, the team resumes excavation on Lot 13, collecting clay and other samples for lab testing. Later, they gather in the war room for a video conference call regarding the stone wall on Lot 26. Francisco believes it to be of Portuguese origin, possibly over 500 years old. The team excavated and obtained a carbon-14 sample from the wall's base. The results date the structure between 1464 and 1638, aligning with Francisco's theory. The team is now more convinced than ever that Oak Island has ties to the Portuguese. Too many clues point in that direction. Determined, they decide to unearth more evidence and travel across Europe to further investigate Oak Island's mystery.